What up, world? R.I.C.H coming right back at you. And today, we got to talk about this new federal filing against Pooh Shiesty. And why this case is starting to look like one of the worst crash-out decisions we have seen in hip-hop history. And before I say anything else, Pooh Shiesty has pled not guilty. These are allegations, and he still has the right to fight the case in court. But when the federal government files 25 pages opposing your bond, that is not a normal update. That is the federal government telling you they see you as a danger, not a defendant.
A Memphis rapper's lawyers want him out of jail. Pooh Shiesty, whose real name is Lontrell Williams, is being held on charges of kidnapping and robbing Atlanta rapper Gucci Mane. He's being held behind bars, deemed a flight risk. Williams' attorneys want him out of custody with strict conditions. The prosecution argues he has not complied with supervision in past years. A judge has not ruled yet. The trial is scheduled for February of next year.
New this morning, the federal government says rapper Pooh Shiesty is simply too dangerous to be out on bond. The rapper's real name is Lontrell Williams Jr. He is asking to be released on bond ahead of his trial. And you may remember he and 8 other men, including his father, are accused in the January robbing and kidnapping of his record label owner, Gucci Mane. The other defendants, including Shiesty's father and rapper Big 30, they're already out on bond. But here's this new filing. Prosecutors argue Shiesty should not be allowed out under any circumstances. They say no condition of release can protect the community or witnesses against Williams Jr. from the danger he poses. It goes on to say the danger here is concrete. Williams Jr. himself has shot at least 2 people. He leads a Memphis street gang of about 100 members. Excuse me, they say he's a man who can summon an armed entourage at will. And they contend he did just that in Dallas in January. We'll let you know what the judge decides. The trial is set for February.
This is where the story gets bigger than rap. The government is not just saying Pooh Shiesty wanted out of a bad record deal. They are saying he helped turn a contract dispute into an armed robbery and a kidnapping. And the contract part is crazy because this was not some simple paper saying, I want to renegotiate. According to the filing, the contract found in Pooh Shiesty's father's email was asking Gucci Mane to give up rights going all the way back to when they met. That is ridiculous. You don't get to build a career through a label, get the push, get the platform, get the machine behind you, then allegedly show up with guns and say, void everything from the start, like it never happened. That is not business. That's emotion dressed up as paperwork. And if the government can prove that paper was part of the setup, then that contract does not help Pooh Shiesty look like a man fighting for fairness. It makes him look like a man who tried to force a legal result through street pressure. That is where this whole thing becomes mind-boggling. If you think Gucci Mane owes you something, get lawyers. If you think the deal is wrong, challenge it. If you think the contract is unfair, you fight it in a way that lets you keep your freedom. But once the guns come into the room, the business argument is over. Now you have given the federal government a different story to tell. And the feds are very good at telling stories with evidence. They don't need the internet to agree with them. They need the text messages, video, phone data, witnesses, timelines, and a jury that believes the paper trail. That is why these signal messages are so important. The government is saying Pooh Shiesty was calling himself Michael Myers, and a co-defendant was calling himself Charles Manson while they were coordinating this attack against Gucci. In a group chat, somebody may think that sounds hard. In federal court, that sounds like intent. A scary movie nickname might get laughs around your people. But when a prosecutor puts that up on the screen, it can make it look like you were planning something dark. That is the part y'all young people don't understand. The same words that make you look dangerous to the streets can make you look unreleasable to a judge. The same image people use to celebrate online can become the same image that keeps you behind bars. And that is exactly what happened here. The defense asked for 24-hour confinement and a GPS monitor. They pointed to the missed drug tests, missed check-ins, a cold urine sample, and an alleged inappropriate relationship with a house arrest supervisor who was supposed to be monitoring him. If a judge believes you broke trust before, you cannot walk back in court and ask for more trust like nothing happened. That's why the witness CW writing a letter to the judge hit so hard. CW is identified as a retired law enforcement officer and one of the victims in this case. He's reportedly connected to Gucci Mane's security. He wrote to the judge asking that Pooh Shiesty be kept locked up because he fears for his safety and his family's safety. And I want y'all to understand how serious that is. That is not a fan comment, and that is not a blog opinion. This is a man telling a federal judge that he is afraid of retaliation. He said he is the only victim that lives in Texas, so he feels exposed. He said he has limited what his children can do outside because he is worried about what could happen if Pooh Shiesty gets out. He pointed out that even being a retired police officer did not stop what allegedly happened to him in that studio. So why would he feel safe if the same person is released back into the world before trial? And then he made a point that probably mattered the most to the court. He said that this alleged robbery already happened while Pooh Shiesty was on monitored release. That is a devastating point. Because if the government says you were already being watched when this happened, then what exactly is another ankle monitor supposed to fix? That is why CW was basically begging the court not to gamble with his life. And when you put that letter next to the government's claim that Pooh Shiesty can summon an armed entourage at his will, you can see why the judge said there were no conditions strong enough to guarantee the public safety. That don't mean Pooh Shiesty is convicted, but it does mean the court is looking at this man and saying, we ain't taking no chance. And this is where the culture gets sick to me. A lot of y'all are not looking at where Pooh Shiesty is sitting right now. Y'all are looking at what he is accused of doing and admiring the image. They see Gucci Mane as weak because he didn't turn a business meeting into a shootout. They see Pooh Shiesty as strong because he allegedly applied pressure in a way that is now going to cost him years of his life. That is backwards thinking. A free man is not weak because he survived a bad situation and then let law enforcement handle it. A locked up man is not strong just because the story sounds fearless. We have confused destruction with courage. We have confused crashing out with standing on business. And now a young man who had money, fame, a name, and a real chance at a second run is sitting in federal custody while a bunch of y'all still sit online and argue like he won. What did he win? Gucci Mane is free. The contract is still part of the case. The federal government has the messages. CW is writing letters to the judge saying he feels for his life. And Pooh Shiesty is waiting on a trial that has been pushed back to February 2027. That is not power. That is a federal problem with a rap soundtrack.
Judge will decide if men charged in alleged kidnapping and robbery involving Memphis rapper Pooh Shiesty will be released pending trial. The factors that the judge will consider include criminal history, flight risk, and whether they have means to pay their bail. Fox 13's investigative reporter Kayla Solomon joins us live from federal court downtown. Kayla, that hearing, in fact, just wrapped up.
Darcy, is actually still going on, heading into hour 4 at this point. But we were able to get a bond assigned for Lontrell Williams Sr., the father of Pooh Shiesty. The judge ultimately decided she's going to assign him a home incarceration, which she says is the strictest bond she can assign outside of giving him or granting him into federal custody. She said the only time he is allowed to leave his home is to attend his court dates in Dallas, where this case will ultimately be tried. And she said he'll be under electronic monitoring while this all plays out. Unclear how late we'll go into tonight, but we do know that Lontrell Williams Sr., father of Pooh Shiesty, has been assigned home incarceration and cannot leave his home unless he's attending a court hearing in Dallas.
His father's situation makes it even more complicated. Pooh Shiesty's father is out on conditions, and now he is asking for more freedom while his son can't even get out at all. That tells you the court is not looking at everybody the same way in this case. The government may have charged them together, but the judge is separating risk, history, role, and danger person by person. And right now, Pooh Shiesty is the one that the court seems the most worried about. That should make every rapper pay attention. The image you build can follow you into court. The reputation that made people fear you in the street can make a judge fear releasing you in public. That is why you have to be careful what you turn yourself into. Because one day you may need a judge to see you as a human being, but the government will walk in with every reason you gave the world to see you as a threat. And with Pooh Shiesty's father, that contract being in his email matters too. If that contract was in his email, then the government is going to argue that this was not some spontaneous argument that got out of control. They are going to argue this was planned. They are going to say the contract was pre-prepared, the meeting was set up, the people were brought there, and the pressure was applied. That is a much worse story than a heated conversation. That is why this looks so bad on paper. You have an alleged contract that demands Gucci Mane give up all rights from the beginning of the world. You have a victim letter about fear and retaliation. And you have a bond violation history that makes home confinement look weak. That is a lot for any defense team to fight.
Jr., also known as Memphis rapper Big 30, is expected to be released from federal custody in Texas today. Federal judge ruled there was not enough proof that Big 30 was a flight risk to keep him behind bars until trial. Prosecutors say Big 30, along with Lontrell Williams Jr., also known as Pooh Shiesty, his father, and 7 others kidnapped and held Gucci Mane at gunpoint to get out of a studio.
Big 30 getting out shows how fast these cases can split people apart. Everybody can come in under the same headline. But once the court starts looking at each person's role, the outcomes can change. One man gets bond, one man asks for more freedom, one man stays locked up because the government says he is the center of the danger. That is another lesson the street never tells young men. You can walk into trouble with a group, but you may not walk out with the same consequences. When the federal case gets serious, everybody has their own lawyer, their own motions, their own risk level, and their own reason to survive. And Pooh Shiesty is the name in the middle of the storm. That is why y'all fans should not be treating this like entertainment. This should be a warning. If you really love Pooh Shiesty, you should not be celebrating the image that might have helped take away his future. You should be looking at this and saying, how did a man with so much talent, money, and opportunity end up back in federal custody? That is the question, because the feds ain't talking about a bar fight. They are talking about an alleged armed takeover of a recording studio involving a contract dispute. They are talking about a victim being forced to sign papers. They are talking about robbery, filth, guns, text messages, and a man who they say cannot be safely released. That is not a street legend. That is a life-altering case. And the saddest part is, some of y'all still calling Gucci Mane weak. To me, that shows how poison this thinking has become. A man who goes home alive is not weak. A man who does not throw his freedom away for pride is not weak. A man who lets the system handle something that could have ended with more dead bodies is not weak. That way of thinking is what's destroying people. And this case is a perfect example. If the government's case is true, Pooh Shiesty didn't win a contract dispute. He turned the contract dispute into a federal case. He didn't prove Gucci Mane was weak. And he did not show young people how to stand on business. He showed them how fast business can turn into a bond denial, victim letters, trial delays, and the possibility of losing your young adult life to a decision that probably felt powerful for a few minutes. That is the whole tragedy. The culture will make a crash out look like a movie scene. The court will make it look like evidence. And prison will make it feel like the rest of your life. So when people ask why this case matters, this is why. It's not just about Pooh Shiesty and Gucci Mane. It's about a generation watching this and deciding what they think strength looks like. If they think being strong is what Pooh Shiesty is accused of, then they in trouble. If they think Gucci Mane surviving and still being free makes them weak, then we in trouble. Because real strength is not about who can create fear in a room. Real strength is about who can leave that room with their future still in their hands. And right now, based on this filing, Pooh Shiesty's future is in the hands of the federal government. That should scare every one of you young artists worse than any bad record deal ever could. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe. Establish Rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.